Hello everyone. In this video, I will be breaking down Volume 1 of the comic DMZ. DMZ was written by Brian Wood. It was published by DC Comics on their Vertigo imprint. It was published from 2006 to 2012. It spanned 72 issues and was collected in 12 trade paperbacks. The comic is really interesting. It is about America entering into a second civil war. There's a group called the Free States, and then there is what we know as America, and they are fighting. And the island of Manhattan is kind of a neutral zone. It is what they call a demilitarized zone, or a DMZ. And this comic is really going to be focusing in on that DMZ area. We're going to be following this character named Matty Roth. He is a journalist, and we are going to see his adventures in the DMZ. Now, I am planning to just cover Volume 1 of this series. I just wanted to check it out because on HBO MAX, in just a few days, they are going to be launching a DMZ TV show miniseries starring Rosario Dawson, and I'm very curious to check it out. I wanted to see how the comic would contrast with the TV show. One thing interesting, though, is that this HBO Max series does not look to be staying that true to the source material. Our main character, Matty Roth, isn't even in the TV show, so I don't really know what they're doing, but it's going to be interesting to see what it's all about. But in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the comic, so let's dive into it. Let's check out the story, explore the DMZ, and later on we can contrast it to the TV show. DMZ Volume 1 On the Ground, written by Brian Wood, art by Brian Wood and Riccardo Burchielli. Issue 1, On the Ground, Part 1. When the book opens, it is now 5 years into America's second Civil War. On one side is the federal government of the United States of America, and on the other side is a group calling themselves the Free States. The Free States are not really tied to a specific geographic region, so it is unlike America's first Civil War, which had the North against the South. Instead, the Free States were more so just an idea or movement that began spreading across the country. After some fighting, the Free State armies, or the FSA, ended up occupying New Jersey and inland, and the United States is holding Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, and other parts unknown. Manhattan Island, though, is now known as the Demilitarized Zone, or the DMZ, which is the name of the book. Neither the Free State armies or the United States controls the DMZ. In war, a DMZ is an area in which treaties or agreements between nations, military powers, or contending groups forbid military installations, activities, or personnel. A DMZ often lies alongside an established frontier or boundary between two or more military powers or alliances. Manhattan is now that boundary, and it separates the Free States on one side and America on the other. Both the FSA and the USA attempted to fight over Manhattan in the past and occupy it, but neither of them could ever hold it. There was a planned evacuation of Manhattan at one point to try and get all these civilians off the island, but it went disastrously wrong, and now 400,000 live in Manhattan, separated from the rest of America. Manhattan is now lawless and is a no man's land. We are now introduced to our main character, a young man in his early 20s named Matty Roth. Matty is currently in Long Island, in what is still considered the United States. Matty is here to start his internship as a photographer for a conservative news publication called Liberty News Network. It is his first day. Matty is expecting an easy assignment. Instead, he is ushered to a helicopter where he meets big shot, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter named Victor Ferguson. They are being flown to Manhattan, with the intended assignment being Victor doing some reporting on life inside the DMZ. Victor, seeing Matty, is immediately a prick to him. He tells Matty a couple things you need to know. 1, You weren't my first choice. I have real photo techs on staff I've worked with before. You're only here because your daddy pulled some strings. 2, I'm the boss. You exist to execute my orders and to be handy at all times, no matter what. Don't try to make conversation. Be my friend, whatever. Understand? The helicopter eventually takes off and they land in Manhattan. Manhattan looks like a war-torn country. Maddie and some of the others get out of the chopper and begin unpacking some gear. It doesn't take long, though all of a sudden, some gunfire begins raining down on them. Some of the police officers that were sent in the helicopter to escort Victor get shot at and die. Victor, still in the helicopter, makes the pilot take off for his own protection, leaving Maddie left behind on the ground. Maddie, he ducks for cover and he yells, "You assholes! Come back! Don't leave me here!" It was probably for the best though, because as the helicopter starts ascending into the air, it gets shot by a rocket and explodes and crashes. Maddie is scared and alone now. He is trapped in a war-torn Manhattan, and he is trying to figure out what to do. He figures first he should grab some supplies, so he is going to try and find the crashed helicopter, which is now a few blocks away. So Maddie, he walks through the streets, and eventually he sees the crashed helicopter, and it is on fire, burning. But some people are there with guns and they are searching it and shooting others inside. Maddie decides better not engage with them. He heads into another direction, trying to hide in a nearby store, and eventually he runs into a woman named Z Hernandez. Z points her gun at Maddie. Z is a woman easily recognizable with her blonde dreadlocks and her freckled skin. Before the war, Z used to be a med student. Now she uses her medical knowledge treating people in the DMZ, even though she is not a full-fledged doctor. Maddie is in shock from everything that has been happening to him, and he manages to faint from the gun being waved in his face. Z, the doctor, decides to help Maddie out. Z takes Maddie back to her makeshift clinic, and Maddie, he eventually wakes up the next day and starts feeling better. Z cooked Maddie some breakfast. Maddie, he eats and starts feeling a little bit better. Eventually, he gets a phone call on one of the handheld Liberty News Network devices that were given to him. Maddie talks on the phone, and the Liberty News Network people on the other line ask who he is. Maddie states his name and says he was the intern. They ask Maddie to put someone more important on, like Victor Ferguson, but Maddie informs them that Victor is dead. They're all dead. The voice on the line tells Maddie to go to the corner of Delancey and Bowery. It's only a few blocks from his current location. They are going to secure the crash site, and then they will pick him up at that extraction point. They warn Maddie, though, he is now in an active war zone, and anyone he sees is a potential hostile. Maddie, he begins packing up. He thanks Z for her help, and he tells her he's getting picked up at the corner of Delancey and Bowery. Z says that Maddie is going to get killed out there if she is not by his side, escorting him. So she offers to get Maddie to where he needs to be. So the two of them walk through the war-torn Manhattan streets. They see some kids scavenging electronic parts out of the crashed helicopter. Z says that those kids will probably either sell the parts to the FSA as intel, or even back to the American troops at the bridge checkpoint. Most here in the DMZ don't support one side or the other. They all feel like our enemies. Maddie, he expresses anger and frustration at being shot at the other day by the people in the neighborhood here. Z explains that, well, troops landing in the middle of a street don't exactly feel friendly to those of us who live here, you know. We're not your enemy, we just live here. If we have guns, it's to keep our homes safe from looters and psychopaths and frickin' attack helicopters. Maddie says, look, I'm not with the military. We were coming to do news stories, not attack anyone. The two of them talk further as they walk, and Maddie eventually expresses that the story that the media is telling about Manhattan from back home doesn't really hold up. He was told that Manhattan was just full of insurgents. He didn't realize there were so many innocent civilians just trying to live their lives here, like Z. As they continue walking, Z tells Maddie, "Look, let's just get you to your friends and get this over with." And Maddie says, "Fine by me. They said they were coming to secure the crash site first, and then pick me up." This sets off alarm bells in Z's head. She says, "What did they say? They said, secure the crash site?" Maddie, not getting why that's a big deal, says, "Yeah, so? I guess they want to recover what they can, equipment and shit." Z tells Maddie, "That's not what securing means, you idiot." At that moment, some helicopters fly up in the air, and they begin shooting at the location of the previous crashed helicopter site. They are trying to destroy any equipment that may have been left behind, as well as maybe valuable intel. Some of the natives in the DMZ begin returning fire on the helicopter. Maddie and Z hide and take cover. Eventually, the helicopters in the air drop a huge bomb down below, and it explodes, wiping out a large section of the area. Afterwards, Maddie's radio turns on. The voice on the other line asks, "Matthew Roth, where are you? We've just secured the crash site and are at the extraction point now. Time to go home, Matthew. Repeat, we're here to take you home." Maddie is disgusted with the lies he has been told. He just saw the US military drop a bomb on some innocent civilians. Maddie, he decides to ignore the call for now, and he is going to stay in the DMZ. Issue 2, On the Ground, Part 2. The next day after the bombing and Maddie deciding he will stay in the DMZ, Z decides to show Maddie around the area. Z asks when was the last time Maddie was in New York City. He says ages ago, before the war, school field trips mostly. Going to museums, seeing Times Square. Z tells Maddie, Times Square is gone now. All the tourist spots are gone. It's not a place you would want to visit anymore. Empire State Building is still standing though, but no one really knows what happens in there. Snipers try and sneak in, but they get caught and tossed out windows. Parks are too dangerous, nowhere to hide from gunfire. A lot of shopping areas turned into black markets, but life goes on. Z then brings Maddie to a rooftop restaurant atop a large building. Even between all the war and destruction, people still have to eat. The rooftop is clean and safe too. Less car bombs and random street crazies. Some food is put in front of them and they begin eating. Z has a pretty nice looking burger she's chowing down on. She explains that food is grown in the city now. There are rooftop gardens and people growing sprouts and tofu and falafel in their basements. Once they eat, they return to Z's clinic in the Lower East Side. There, Z introduces Maddie to her friend named Jamal Green. Jamal, before the war, was actually a third-year architecture student. Now he is putting his skills to use in the DMZ. Currently, he is working on a project uptown, designing a new retaining wall off the West Side Highway. Jamal and his crew have some of Maddie's equipment that was retrieved from the helicopter before it got destroyed. So we're talking cameras, a laptop for reporting on and sending stories, and a few other things. Maddie is surprised none of the stuff is broken. He says, "I was worried they were going to make me pay for it. They made me sign a contract and everything." Z suggests that Maddie actually use the equipment, take pictures. He came here to report, so report. She offers Maddie to follow her on her rounds today and bring his camera, document things. Maddie takes up Z on her offer. Now, Z was a med student in her life before the war. Not a full-fledged doctor, but when the war started and real doctors became limited, Z stepped up and started helping people in the DMZ. She now travels around Manhattan to various buildings and provides medical services. The two of them enter one dilapidated building. It has graffiti on the walls and it smells terrible. They eventually enter a room with sick, injured children with limbs missing from explosions and various other sores and disfigurements. Z gets to work on treating them. It is all very overwhelming to Maddie though. He goes into the bathroom and almost throws up. He also has himself a little panic attack. Once Z finishes, they leave. Maddie asks Z, those people, why aren't they in a hospital? Z says that the hospitals are in bad shape. They look like something out of a horror film. So most of the people she treats are just in their homes. Z and Maddie then climb up another building where she introduces Maddie to another friend of hers. This friend has access to a military technology called a super rifle. It's a rifle that is so advanced it can see things clearly miles away. The super rifle is out of bullets. The bullets were gone many months ago, but he still uses the super rifle to survey various buildings around Manhattan and New Jersey. Right now, he is looking at another building all the way in downtown Jersey City, in the Free States area. On the other side of that super rifle in Jersey City is a woman with her own rifle, and she is holding a sign saying, "Where are you?" The man writes back on a board saying, "Sorry, baby, I have two friends." The man and the woman on the opposite sides of the rifles consider themselves boyfriend and girlfriend, and they communicate with each other by writing messages and looking at the messages through their rifles. The two of them have never met in person. This has been going on for 6 months. Maddie, he is inspired by this story. He thinks it would make a great article. He asks the man if he can interview him, and the man agrees. Later on, Maddie, he writes 2 news stories on his laptop. One about the love story between the man and the woman, communicating to each other through the scope of a gun through handwritten messages. And the second story he writes is about Z, the human face of war, a woman stepping up to take care of the sick. Maddie, he emails the stories along with some pictures to Liberty News Network. Once Liberty News Network receives the article and the pictures, they phone Maddie on the sat phone that was part of the equipment that was sent there. Liberty News Network, through the sat phone, tells Maddie, "Maddie, what are you doing? We just got your uploaded files. Look, obviously the assignment's been canceled." Maddie says he is staying here and doing his job. Liberty News replies, "Maddie, you were Mr. Ferguson's assistant. This isn't your job to do. We'll be sending another team in a few months. You're welcome to reapply for the internship then. I can assure you you'll be at the absolute top of the list of finalists." Maddie argues, "Screw you. Seriously, do you not have a clue? You land me in an ambush with no training, drop bombs on my head, and then give me some bullshit line like I'm a rookie? Okay, yeah, I know I'm a rookie, but I'm the frickin' rookie with a full editing and broadcast suite in the middle of Manhattan, no man's land, something none of your competitors have right now. I have a guide, a place to crash, and I'm ready to do the work. You want the stories or not? If not, I'm sure I can get a really good price for this equipment out on the street." Liberty News Network reads through some of the stories Maddie sent over, and they tell him, you know what, they're not bad. Even though Maddie was just a lowly unimportant intern, Maddie does bring up some good points in his arguments. They decide to give Maddie a shot, and his first assignment. They tell Maddie to go to the old South Street Seaport. Get into a hotel or office tower that will be a few stories off the ground. They give him the heads up that an invasion force is headed into lower Manhattan. This is Maddie's shot. If he wants to be a wartime journalist, here it is. Issue 3, On the Ground, Part 3, Conclusion. The United States have a submarine that launches missiles in the air, and those missiles rain down in various positions in downtown Manhattan, causing all sorts of explosions. And Maddie? He was there, up high in an office tower, taking pictures thanks to the tip from Liberty News Network. But even he is a little surprised at all the destruction. Eventually, the US Army find Maddie in the office tower, and they point their guns at him. They worry Maddie is potentially an insurgent fighter. Maddie gets on his knees and puts his hands on his head, and he tells them he's a journalist with Liberty News. He's an American just like them. The US soldiers make Maddie strip naked just to make sure he doesn't have a hidden weapon or bomb on him. Once they are satisfied, they let Maddie get dressed. And Maddie was with the US soldiers now, and they begin walking through the downtown streets. They come across Z giving mouth to mouth to an innocent civilian woman. She is too late though. The woman is dead. Z, when she sees the US soldiers, is furious with them. She tells them, "Good job, guys. Bullseye on the family of 4. My compliments to your bosses." So these missiles that struck the city have killed some innocents. The US soldiers tell Maddie to go take some pictures. One soldier gives an order saying, "A series of photos, okay? No street signs, no distinctive background architecture, and no faces of my men. The story is this insurgent cell defeated en route to engage American forces." Or something, whatever, you know. And crop out the small bodies, which is code for not showing pictures of dead children. Maddie does not like this one bit. Eventually, an explosion goes off in the area. Some of the US soldiers get injured. Maddie, he snaps some pics. The US soldiers and Maddie are forced to take cover. But one of the US soldiers that is a little insane and a little injured has completely lost it. He is standing out in the middle of the street, out in the open, just begging for a sniper to pick him off. The soldier in the open yells, "Hello, Manhattan. Remember me, you ungrateful fucks? I'm the motherfucking king of New York." Maddie asks one of the US soldiers, "Why aren't they shooting at him? You think they are really gone, the snipers?" A soldier answers, "Nah. They're waiting for one of us to go out after him. 2 targets that way." The soldier orders Maddie to go out there into the open and get that soldier and bring him back into cover. He says they won't shoot at Maddie because he's press. Maddie refuses. The soldier is looking at Maddie and is actually a little bit surprised that Maddie doesn't have a press jacket on. Often during war, journalists wear jackets that say press on them. That way, soldiers on either side of the war know there is no incentive to kill them as they are not the enemy. The soldier takes out some spray paint and spray paints the word press in big letters on the back of Maddie's jacket. He then tells Maddie, "Now go out there and bring him back. He's bleeding out." Maddie, scared, still refuses, saying, "Screw you. They'll kill me." The soldier tells Maddie, "I'll kill you," as he holds a knife up to Maddie's face. He then forces Maddie out into the open to get his soldier back into cover. Maddie goes out into the open, but he sees Z has just at that moment walked out, yelling that she is a medic and is unarmed. Maddie is surprised at the balls on her. He was arguing like hell to not go out into the open, and Z just volunteered. She just selflessly is there to help people. Together, Z and Maddie get to the American soldier that was injured, and they attempt to bring him into cover and safety. Z takes this opportunity, though, to express her anger with Maddie. She says, "Go back to your buddies, Maddie. I don't need you here. Jesus Christ, I leave you for 10 minutes, and next thing I see, you've hooked up with these psychopaths," referring to the American soldiers. She says, "Good job, well done. Hope it's everything you wanted it to be and more." Maddie tries to explain his side of the situation. He says, "I didn't hook up with them. They found me and took me with them." Z asks, "What, by force? Did they put a gun to your head?" And Maddie answers, "Actually, yeah." Z and Maddie, they start carrying the injured soldier. They are trying to get him into cover. Z says that the soldier will be okay. All of a sudden, though, that soldier that they were helping gets sniped in the head and dies. Z and Maddie were not fired upon, though. Z, surprised and exasperated, says, "I'm so sick of this. Sick of you people screwing things up. People being killed." And Z walks off. Maddie tries to talk with her, but she tells him to fuck off and go back home. Moments later, some Free State soldiers drive up, and there is a huge firefight between the US Army and the FSA. There is gunfire all around. Z, she flees and runs away. Maddie He hides in the back of a broken taxicab until the shooting stops, and he tries to snap the odd picture when he can. In the aftermath, this invasion attempt by the US on Manhattan was not successful. Maddie eventually wrote an article on the battle, and he sent it to his editors along with some pictures, and Liberty News Network published it, and it made big news. For now, they are just crediting this info to an anonymous, but it was in fact Maddie, and he did in fact get the job. He is now officially the only journalist working in the DMZ. Issue 4: Ghosts. It is a few weeks, or maybe even months, later since we've last checked in on Maddie. He is now roaming the DMZ, hunting for stories. It is winter now and very snowy. Maddie is walking through Central Park. He is searching for a group called the Ghosts. They are rumored to be operating in Central Park. As Maddie is walking through the park, he eventually runs into them. They are in military snow camo outfits. Their leader is a man with a thick black mustache named Soames. One of Soames' men knocks Maddie out with a blow dart. When Maddie wakes up, he is in the Central Park Zoo, trapped in a habitat where animals would normally be kept. He sees a panda bear and tons of bamboo. Maddie is eventually taken to the Central Park Armory, where he is introduced to Soames and his men. They apologize to him. They didn't know he was pressed. They thought he was a scavenger who meant them harm. Soames and his men are in fact the group Maddie heard about, the supposed Ghosts, although Soames and his men deny that they are that group. They say they are just environmentalists, outdoorsmen, scientists. Some would even call them tree huggers. Although secretly they are the Ghosts. They were a special forces unit that came into the DMZ during the first days of the war. They then went rogue and decided to stay in Manhattan. These Ghosts watch animals and the park and defend it against those who would want to destroy it. Soames gives Maddie a tour of the area. Soames says that they have generators and are independent of any electric or gas or even plumbing systems in the rest of Manhattan. They are also underground right now, which helps with heat and security. Soames explains that all the work they did to establish this place. He says, the city was being bombed constantly, neighborhoods taken and retaken. And we wanted people to forget about us, basically. We quite literally pulled the ground up over our heads and hunkered down. We replaced the roofs with a combination of solar panels and plexiglass. Solar power, natural light, and instant greenhouses. Works brilliantly. We grow peat to burn in the winter, and we built a nursery for chickens and goats. We have eggs, cheese, milk, and on special occasions, meat. All fully organic. He then shows Maddie one of the habitats where they grow tons of bamboo. Maddie asks, why are you growing so much of it? Soames answers that in the first winter after the war started, people began cutting down trees in the park for fuel, and it was instantly clear that they would need a solution. Bamboo is strong, versatile, and incredibly adaptable. It grows like a weed with a little encouragement, and we don't need to replant like other trees. We had a small area of bamboo in the panda exhibit already, so we just let it take over. We build with it, barter with it, and even eat it, and pandas, they love it. Maddie, he snaps some pictures of everything he's seen. Soames wants Maddie to do a story on their group, get the word out, tell people who they are and what they do. They want the world to know that someone is taking care of the park and the animals, and he hopes that if the word gets out, maybe they could get some help. He says, look, someday the war is going to be over, and people are going to move back. Don't you think they're going to want the park to still be here when that happens? Maddie, he agrees to write a story. He goes out on patrol with the Ghost crew as they walk through Central Park in the snow. Eventually, they see some foragers with chainsaws and other weapons. They are coming for the trees in the park so they can burn them for heat. The ghosts tell Maddie that sometimes they offer people like this bamboo instead. If they don't like it or accept it, maybe they kill one or two of them to scare them off. The ghost tells Maddie to keep that part off the record though. With this particular group of foragers in the park, things eventually turn violent. The foragers have snowmobiles and guns with them, and the ghosts with their guns fire upon them. A big gun battle ensues. The foragers shoot Soames in his shoulder. He'll be okay though. Another ghost soldier named Miller tackles Maddie to save him, but Miller gets shot in his back by the foragers. The foragers and their snowmobiles drive off, retreating from the battle. This was just a hit and run. They were just here to quickly get what they need and then get out. Maddie comforts Miller, the soldier that saved his life, who is now dying in the snow. Miller knows he is dying and tells Maddie, "Listen, in my chest pocket, I got an envelope with a key, get it? The key is for my mom's old place in Stuytown. Map and door codes in there too. It's empty but secured. You can stay there, seriously man. Write your story and stay there. It's a sweet apartment, dude. You can stay, but you gotta get out if my mom comes back. And you gotta tell her story, okay? People need to know. We just want to help." Maddie promises Miller to tell their story. And Miller, his last words are, "Dude, one more thing. Don't put this in the story, okay? But Soames lied to you. We are the ghosts." These ghosts, they didn't want to admit they actually were the ghosts earlier. But Maddie pretty much knew the whole time. Maddie, saddened, tells Miller, "I know you are." Issue 5, Crosstown. Maddie is now living in Stuytown neighborhood in Manhattan, in the apartment that Miller, the dead ghost soldier, gave him the key for last issue. Maddie has been living here for a few weeks now. And Maddie, he's liking it so far. It's a close community, people are nice. They even get electricity for an hour or so a day, rerouted from the city grid that they managed to get working. There is some radio signals you can catch too. There's Liberty News, a pirate station, which is probably the best, and there is Radio Free New Jersey, which is basically just Bruce Springsteen all day. As Maddie's in his new apartment, typing away one day, a man kicks in his door and hits Maddie. The man forces Maddie into his bathtub and tells him to count to 60 before leaving. Maddie does so. As soon as Maddie finishes, the thief has already taken off and stole some of Maddie's stuff. Maddie, he looks around and wonders what was stolen. His laptop and expensive equipment is still around. What did the guy take? Maddie looks around and eventually figures it out. The thief stole his press jacket and also his press badge. Maddie, he looks out the window and sees the burglar with the jacket running away. Maddie decides to run after him. The press jacket and press badge are kind of protection in the DMZ. A sniper won't fire on you if you're wearing it. That's pretty valuable. Maybe even more valuable than a laptop. Maddie, he is running outside through the streets, asking locals in the neighborhood where they saw the thief with the press jacket running. Maddie, he gets pointed in the right direction. So Maddie, he is running around trying to chase after this man. He almost gets shot at one point, so he ducks into a nearby building. In the building, a big man in suspenders and a nipple piercing and a dragon tattoo sees Maddie as an enemy and swings at him. Maddie dodges and checks the man into the wall. Maddie continues running throughout the building. He passes by a commune of people huddled around a fire. He then sees some hipster girls and they point Maddie in the direction of the thief with the press jacket. At some point, Maddie spots the man in the stolen press jacket outside. But before Maddie can get to him, he is stopped by what seems like a volunteer police officer of sorts. This volunteer police officer was told moments ago by the thief with the press jacket that Maddie was a troublemaker chasing him. So when Maddie tries to get away, the officer clubs him in the head. While Maddie was knocked out, the police officer called Z over to the scene. Z talks with the officer and vouches for Maddie and tells the volunteer officer that he got tricked and clubbed the wrong man. The officer says, "Look, This one here had murder in his eyes, and the other one was flashing credentials. What do you want from me? Maddie asks, where did the thief go? The officer points Maddie in the right direction. With Maddie gone, Z talks with the officer some more and asks, so how did you know to call me for Maddie? And the officer says he had your name and contact info written on a little card in his wallet, like a next of kin kind of thing. Z sighs and says, great. Maddie, he continues his pursuit of the thief. When he loses the trail, he asks people nearby if they saw the man running around with the jacket. And because the jacket is pretty recognizable, a lot of them did see it and point Maddie in the right direction. As Maddie is walking, he finally sees the thief sitting on a bus stop, and the thief is taunting him. The thief says, frickin' rookie, walked right into it. Maddie looks down and sees he just stepped on a tripwire. It's set to explode. Maddie, he dives for cover and a bomb goes off. Explosions all around. Maddie, though, miraculously is still alive, and he continues to pursue the thief. The thief is in disbelief that Maddie survived that explosion, and he gets up and continues trying to run away from him, and Maddie is chasing after him. Eventually, they run all the way up to the Lincoln Tunnel. The Lincoln Tunnel is the tunnel you cross to get from Manhattan to New Jersey. Once at the Lincoln Tunnel, some Free Army soldiers in New Jersey stop them both. One of the men is actually the leader of the Free Armies. He goes by the name the Commander. The Commander gives Maddie and the thief orders to stand still. He asks them, what are you doing here? The thief tries to lie his way out of the situation. He says, this guy's been chasing me for blocks, man. He's crazy. Chasing me all over the frickin' city. I didn't do shit, but he got it in for me for something. You gotta help me, please. The Commander asks, that true? You chasing this poor kid, Mr. Roth? Maddie says, what? How do you know my name? The Commander, he knows that this thief is bullshitting him. He says, we get Liberty News over here too, you know. News for Americans. You're looking at the truest, most bluest motherfucking Americans you'll ever meet. Take off the jacket, kid. Give it back. I got 5 men up there with rifles and orders to fire if you don't. The thief, he removes the jacket and gives it to Maddie and runs away. The Commander tells Maddie, anytime you want to come back and do a story on some genuine, homegrown, flag-burning, good old American turncoats, you're welcome. We ain't going nowhere. And with Maddie now meeting the Commander of the Free Armies face to face, we now end Volume 1. Alright, so that was DMZ Volume 1. Let me go through what I liked and what I liked a little bit less. Firstly, I thought it was a very interesting premise, and I'm very curious to learn more about how America entered this second Civil War, and what will the political situation be like going forward. What's going to happen to Manhattan? What about these free states and America? Will they reconcile in the end? I also think it's interesting to follow this Maddie Roth, this journalist. Often journalists in war zones are always covering situations in other parts of the world. Well, this book is exploring what would that be like if that war zone was right here in America. And it is compelling to see that play out. Now, the artwork is fine, although not my favorite. I'm not in love with any of the characters yet, really. Although maybe that would change over time as I go further into the series. So yeah, I thought this was good. Not amazing, but good. I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm very curious to see this HBO Max show and see some of the differences between the source material and whatever that Rosario Dawson show is going to do. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll be back next week with a brand new comic. I'm going to be covering Mark Russell's Fantastic Four life story. I really like the Fantastic Four, and I like Mark Russell, and this book is really fun, so I think you will all dig it.